the question they ask us is the square root of c squared. There are two ways to think about this, and I will show you both. They're both going to end up on the same answer. No big deal. Okay. Here's the first way. I'm going to use this law. Okay. These laws, they're there to help us. They're not there to like, oh man, another thing to memorize. They actually will make our working easier. So in particular, I'm going to look at this one, right? Because it's an equation, you can go from the left to the right or the right to the left. Same thing. Okay? So instead of writing this square root sign, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, in square root of square root, I'll write the power of a half. Okay, is that all right? So c squared to the power of a half. These two are the same thing. Okay, the square root of something or something to the power of a half, exactly the same, just a different way to write it. But this way to write it is a little clearer. I'll show you why. When you see this, this looks like this, doesn't it? Can you see the brackets? Can you recognize it? It's the power of a power. There's one and there's the other. Okay? So when you've got power of a power, what do you do to the powers? You multiply them. Like so. 2 times a half. That's just 1, right? That's C. Okay, so there's your answer. Now I said I would show you two ways. Okay, the second way is to say, well, what does square root mean? Like, what is the, when I say the square root of 25, what do I mean?
What number times itself is 25?
Bingo! Let me say that again. What is the number that if you times it by itself, multiply by itself, it'll give you 25? So I can say, what's the number that when you multiply it by itself, gives you c squared? And the answer is, if you times c by itself, you'll get c squared. That's what c squared means. Okay?
When you say like you times something by a half, do you times it by the half of the number that you're timesing it by?
I think you're getting confused between multiplication and the power. So up here, I mean, this is to the power of a half, right? But going from here to here, I'm using a law. That's why the powers, the indices, multiply by each other.
But like half of what? Like half of c or like?
No, half of 2. That's why I write 2 times a half. So that whole thing up there, that's the new power, okay? And then you multiply it, you get 1, okay? Now, that's okay, but when you move into question 3, they throw in extra numbers and it gets a bit more confusing. Let me show you 3b. Do 3b again, okay? They give you, sorry, lost it, there it is. They give you this, okay? Now, the reason why I like this approach is because I can do it exactly the same way and it'll still give me the right answer. Watch. There's what's underneath the square root sign, okay? So what power should I write up there, which would be equivalent to the first line? I should write a half, right? Okay, now, again this time, look at your laws. Which one of these laws is going to be most relevant? Look carefully at what I've got here.
The one that you circled.
I am going to use the one that I circled in a second, but can you see that inside the brackets I've got two things? I've got the 9 and I've got the b squared. So in fact what I want is as Brittany said, the one underneath. See how I've got two things being multiplied by each other? Okay. So when you've got two things inside the brackets all raised to a power, the power grabs onto both of them. Okay, so it's going to look like this. 9 to the power of a half times b squared to the power of a half. You see that? These two things are multiplied by each other, so they're both going to get the power. There they are, a half and a half. Okay? 9 to the power of half. That's the square root of 9. What's the square root of 9?
3.
It's 3. Because if you multiply 3 by itself, you'll get 9. And this thing here, this is just like the question we looked at before. It's just b. Okay? Again, just like the previous question, you can think about it the other way. What's the number that you multiply by itself to give you 9b squared? 3b times 3b. 9b squared. Okay?